Angela Yee, and what an honor to have my sister, Sheena Meade, is here with me today. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me and during Second Chance Month and able to lift up this issue, my story. I'm excited.
You're the CEO of the Clean Slate initiative, and like you said, it is Second Chance Month, and there's so many things that we need to talk about.
Yeah.
I mean, let's get started with your story, though, Sheena, and why you have the Clean Slate initiative and why it's necessary.
You know, my story is not unique. There are over 114 million Americans that have an arrest or conviction. And that's 1 in 3 Americans, and I'm one of those people. So in 2004, at that time, I was living in Florida, single mom, trying to make ends meet on government assistance. And I tell people I was that type of broke where if you got gas in the car, your car insurance is not up to date, right?
Right.
Or either you got insurance, but you don't got no gas.
You got to make some choices.
You got to make some choices. And I had to go to the store at that time. Back in the day, we used to write checks. This was before we had Apple Pay and stuff. And we write a check over the amount. And so I went to get groceries for the kids and enough money so I could get some gas in the car. And the check was $87.26. That check had bounced. You know, I was young, not really understanding financial literacy. And also like really believing God that the check wouldn't get into the account.
Right.
Until
you'd be like, let me get this money in
Right.
and then it'll cover this. But I understand what you're saying.
Right.
But also you're not thinking that's a crime.
Right. Or I'm just thinking, I'm trying to like juggle, like if I buy the groceries today on Wednesday, my direct deposit to be there hopefully before the check get there. And the check got returned. It basically met the bank with no money in it. And 2 months later, girl, the cops is knocking at the door. The kids are like, Mommy, the cops are at the door. And I never been in trouble, never had any engagement with the police. I'm like, they must be at the wrong house or whatever.
Right.
Answer the door and they're like, Sheena, we have a warrant for your arrest for a worthless check.
For $87.26.
$87.26 that I had wrote to the grocery store. And that day, like, I was shocked. And
Because that's wild, because that's such a small, like, in consideration of what you would consider to be a reason to actually get arrested and go to jail, that doesn't feel like an amount. Like, that feels like something that's like, look, you're in trouble, you need to pay this. Like, maybe that's a notification, maybe that's some type of, like, you know, we send you something, you got to pay this, or you're going to have to pay these additional penalties and fees or something
I believe
like that.
if my name was not Sheena, when that paper went to the district attorney's office, they would not have signed it to say go issue a warrant.
And this is Florida, to be clear.
This is in Florida.
Okay.
Where all things go to hell. Yes,
Yeah.
in Florida. But it's hope there.
To be clear.
To be clear. And yeah, so I did a TED Talk last year, and before I used to tell my story, I used to tell the story like, it was under $100, and before I did the TED Talk, they make you fact check everything. So I had to go back and pull up the paperwork, and when I saw the amount, it just got me angry again. I got upset, I got emotional, because I'm thinking about what other women or men like got locked up for something like this, and I read that it said, in good faith, we're issuing this warrant for $87.26. And then recently I went back to go pick up the arrest report online, and I saw that I had a $500 bond because, I tried to like put that out in my mind. I didn't realize it was a barrier really back then. I was like, let me pay these people their money back. Let me get done. You have to borrow money to pay back the check and the fees for getting locked up.
You're like, I already didn't have the $87.26.
But
Now I got to pay.
But since y'all think I'm rich,
Right.
let me go get some more money to pay off these fees and get bonded out. And I thought it was over. But it wasn't until I started to try to enroll in college to better myself, that I was met with the application asking, have you ever been arrested or convicted? And then I remembered, wait, I got this thing. And then I had to go pull up the paperwork. Or whether I'm trying to rent a house or a home and getting it rejected, which I have, even within the last 6 years, got rejected with all the things that I've done for the community or my husband have done, or even jobs. And so the true sentence usually don't start for people who have an arrest or conviction until after they've served their time or paid their debt.
Yeah, that's what makes it so difficult to even like, look, I got my real estate license recently. One of my friends got his too, and he has a record. And so now you have to get like permission and get a letter from this person and that person and get like and have these recommendations. It makes it a lot more difficult to be able to even get licensed or certified in certain things too.
And we call that collateral consequences. And there are over 44,000 of those for people who have barriers to get what we call occupational licenses, to be a realtor, to even do cosmetology, to barber. Now, we all know some brothers on the block or sisters that have been maybe incarcerated, and they picked up that trade while they was locked up to do hair, barbering. They come home trying to make better of themselves, get a business, and then they're still locked out. And I think that's the narrative that folks don't understand. Like, we have family members and loved ones who get hit up by the system, and we're telling them, come home, get you a job, pull yourself up by the bootstraps, go to school.
But then they make it so hard to be able to do that.
But they make it so hard for them to do it.
Sheena, when they came to your house, the warrant for your arrest, did they take you right then? Or what happened? Because you had the kids in the house.
Oh, listen, I was so green. I was real bougie. You would have thought I called like a case. I was crying. I was like, can y'all meet me down the street and then put me in the car? They was like, no. Like, the one cop was trying to have compassion. The other cop was probably frustrated. Like, they probably were just frustrated. Like, why the hell are we even out here picking this woman up? I didn't know all that then. And I always say, thank God for the nosy neighbor that always be like looking out. It was this lady who was looking out her back door, and she had a house full of like kids, and she came over and got my kids for me. Because
thank goodness, because what would have happened if the kids are in the house, they're taking you, and they're young, because you were young too.
Yeah, all my kids, again, I was a young mom, I was a teenage mom, and this is in my like mid-20s, so I have 4 kids now. The kids were like 20. I was 20-something years old, had 4 children, all under the age of like 9 or 8.
Yeah.
And she came and got the kids, and then had to call my mom. And now when I think back, $500 is not a small amount.
Right. It's definitely not.
And you got to call somebody at jail. And my mom used to always tell me, if you ever get locked up, don't call me. That's the thing, we hear families say. But this wasn't with intention. She came and got me, So I had to call my family to come get me. But I think about even now today, like how many women and men are still behind bars because they don't have the money to somebody come get them out or support, or what happened with their children. So I was fortunate.
I'm glad you brought that up, because bail reform has been a huge topic, and we see it twisted from all different narratives, right? Because they make it seem like these dangerous criminals are back on the street. But then sometimes it's something that is, first of all, people are sitting there, they haven't even gotten before a judge yet, and they don't have the money to get out, and they sit there for like long periods of time where anything could happen. We all saw the Khalif Browder story and what happened with him. But when you think about bail reform and how that does benefit some people, because it's not like if you murdered somebody, you're going to get out with no bail. That's not what that's for. That's for something like what happened with you.
Yeah. Or many other cases where, I'm thinking, can somebody call my employer to let them know, if I had to stay the night, like who's making that call? There are so many people who are losing jobs, opportunities, their children, and the system is just swallowing them up. And so these are the things that we're trying to lift up in Second Chance Month, that, we have to like unravel a lot of these issues that came from mass incarceration.
All right, so then after that, tell me what happened.
Yeah.
I just want to hear like some of the things that happened. I'm sure that's horrifying for the kids to see too.
It's funny because I didn't really start talking about the story until recently, until I started leading Clean Slate. And then when I did my TED Talk, I really started leading with that story. I think that I didn't really understand how my record was holding me back for a minute. I just thought this just was the way things was because I was young black woman, I'm a mom, I'm just like, okay, the cards ain't decked up for me. But it wasn't until later in life that I realized, wait a minute, it is my record that is holding me back, especially when I start putting applications. So after that, moving on, you fast forward, now I'm trying to roll in college. I got married to my love of my life, Desmond Meade, in 2012. And when I met him, Desmond shared his story that he was formerly incarcerated and he was looking to restore voting rights. And he had this big dream that, he'd be able to vote one day and be able to like get 1.4 other million people in Florida the right to vote. And that's when I really started understanding like what this issue was, like the barriers that people had, because we would go out there try to get folks who were formerly incarcerated excited about voting, and they was like, I can't get a job. Like, I hear that, that's cool, but if I can't feed my family, if I have nowhere to live, how's voting going to help me? So we had to do a lot of education. As a matter of fact, I think you even covered that story
Definitely
in Florida
did,
during election
yeah.
time. So thank you.
And, Florida, because that was definitely on, when people were voting, that was on the ballot.
Yes.
To make sure that they would restore voting rights.
Yes.
And that was a bipartisan effort, if I'm not mistaken.
It was, yes. So I took a piece out of Desmond Playbook.
Okay.
And took the piece of being like people over politics, like bipartisanship. Like it's about people. It's not about politics. It's not about Democrats or Republicans. And when you got 1 in 3 people, like over 114 million people,
right.
That's hitting close to home. And I don't care what your political status is. And so, so took a piece out of his book. But during that time, just a little bit more about my story. When so Desmond is like running this campaign. 2016, I decided to run for office. Ran for office. It wasn't successful. I realized now that God had a big something bigger for me.
Right. And just for people listening, a lot of times when people run for office and they're in position now, they didn't win initially in whatever offices they were running for, because that does happen all the time.
Yeah.
And you learn a lot from that because, you end up doing other things or getting into another office or running again and winning, just like our president did too, by the way. Okay, but go ahead.
Yeah, and I mean, I encourage especially women to run for office. Like,
I love that.
Yeah, so like go run, like be that spokesperson. And the reason why I ran is like, I'm tired of begging people to do the things they need to do.
Yeah,
and at our local level,
are like, I don't want to vote. I don't want to be involved. I don't like politics. Well, if there's things that you feel like need to be changed,
right,
then maybe you need to run for office and show that you really care and that you really about it instead of just tweeting about it.
Right, and I tell people it's not about politics. I was sitting with a sister who was doing my hair, and she was like, I did vote before, but I don't know what's happening. And the way I break it down to people when I was running for office, I was going to the young moms. I was like, you like that WIC check? I was like, that WIC check helping you, right? I was like, do you know that the federal government puts this in a budget? And then the state has a say in that. Like, so we have to educate people around issues and not politicians. And I think that's where people get voter apathy around, because they're like, it's always caught up about the candidate, but it's the issue. And we saw that with Amendment 4. We had over 5 million people come out to vote yes on 4 because they believed in second chances. They believed in redemption. It was an issue that they could relate with.
I remember when that was on the ballot, too, in Florida, because, we look at Florida like, man, they rolling back, a lot of rights there. You can't read certain books in the school. They're banning this. They're banning that. So that was an issue that I was like, is this really going to pass? Because I was watching that to see, and it was amazing. I remember how exciting it was for people when this actually
passed. Across the country, everybody felt like they was a part of it, because people from all across the country was watching it. And because of the work that Florida Rights Restoration, Desmond Meade has done, that I was a part of, they got nominated for Nobel Peace Prize last year. And so it's been beautiful that now that people have the right to vote, but now we are seeing folks who are formerly incarcerated, who are directly impacted, really stepping up, understanding the power that they have, because they're a big voting block. They're a big block in our community. And so, so I started to do the work there with Desmond. He asked me to put on a women's retreat for formerly incarcerated women to get them active in the community. And at that time, I was like, you can't ask people to transform the community when they got to go through personal transformation. And so we did like this women's retreat, and I got to learn a lot about what other directly impacted women went through, like that process, or what they were going through before they became incarcerated, which a lot of them were also victims of crime and stuff like that. And that really put the bug in me since then, and working on that campaign. And then in 2020, I was approached around Clean Slate after we passed Amendment 4, and I knew that Desmond had a blueprint around working across political aisles and really leading with your story. And it really helped me. Like, it was tough talking about my story, because you asked about where my kids were at with that. I never had a conversation with my kids about that. And I think just even in Black culture and families, we don't talk about Pookie and Ray Ray when they get locked up. We just like they went away. We don't visit. We don't send the letters.
It also impacts how you feel about the cops, because imagine they're watching this happen, their mom, and they're young, like you said, under 9 years old, and they see this happen. Now, what do I think about cops when I see
Yeah, because that was their first interaction with the police, that they're taking my mom away. And so my kids are older now, so we really never talked about that moment. I think there's been a lot of great things that we've been able to do to kind of suppress some of that, or maybe it was they didn't understand, but yeah.
Now, I want to talk about legislation and how people can actually make a difference, because sometimes we can talk about what's happening, but also knowing that you can actually do something about it, because people feel helpless. You might feel like, all right, I just can't get any work. I can't get this to happen. I can't get housing. I can't get anything. What can I do?
Yeah.
You know, and so I want to talk about what you've been doing and how you've been able to actually make change when it comes to legislation.
Yeah. Well, what I would tell anyone is that we all have a voice and your issue matters. And if you want to see change, you got to be the change, right? And the first step is being active, civically engaged, making sure that you're voting, making sure that your voice is heard. I like to say I turn my pain into purpose. So whether it was the issue of me having to depend on government assistance so I could feed my children, those WIC checks, my children being able to have access to early education with Head Start, those are issues that I advocated for because I know how it impacted my life and my children's life. Whether it was for housing, I had Section 8, and I know what that was able to do for me to give me a step up. Right. So I advocate for that on the federal level. I think the first thing is us to make sure that we're educating people around how they can utilize their voice at a local level. And I say all politics start local. So you have your school board who's making decisions around who take books out of schools or not, or your state legislature. But the work that we've been doing at Clean Slate has been a beautiful testament of how people could come around, folks around redemption and second chances. And we've been able to pass legislation or have legislation adopted in over 12 states across the country, clean slate laws, meaning that once you have served your time, remain crime-free, if the state says that you're eligible for your offense to get cleared off your record, what we're doing is automating that process. Almost think about like your credit. Like we all wait for that 7 years for that thing to drop off our credit. I know I
just dropped off mine. Like,
feel real good.
Last week, I looked at my score. I said, okay. Yeah.
Checking that credit card. Well, it's like that. You know that in 7 years it should come off. So the legislation basically says that after a certain amount of time, that will be removed, that the burden is no longer on you.
What is the process of doing that? Because I know I read in these notes that more than 30 million people are eligible
to get
for
the
record clearance, but like 10% of people
do it because, I mean, every state is different. So just about every state has a mechanism to get your record cleared. And so for myself, like in Florida, I'm not eligible at this time. It's so bureaucratic, so much red tape to get your record cleared. But in some states, you basically have to petition. You have to go find your paperwork, go back to the county where the offense was made, have to probably go get a DA to sign off or a judge to sign off. In Louisiana, you have to pay up to $500 per offense.
Sheesh.
Just to get cleared. And you may be only eligible to get one thing off your record. And so what we're doing is removing the red tape that once if the person is eligible, this is not for all offenses. These are offenses that the state has already usually said that are eligible.
Right.
Or
you have to be eligible.
Have to be eligible, and that it will come off your record in a certain amount of time.
So you're still not eligible?
I'm still like in Florida right now. You can only get certain.
Hold on.
That's
wild to me. So wait, this was how long ago that this happened?
20 years. It'll be 20 years
ago,
next month.
A bounce check for $87.26, and you still have this
on my record
as a conviction on your record, and you're still not eligible.
I still don't have a clean slate, but I realize that again.
That's wild to me.
It is very wild, but it also reminds me, like again, I take the spiritual journey on this, like. That $87.26, I was able last year to get $75 million for our organization to help.
There's a purpose.
Right, a purpose to help millions of people to get their record cleared. And just a few months ago, we saw that the governor of New York signed Clean Slate into law, where over 2.5 million people, when that law goes into effect, 2.5 million people will have a second chance for real. And so it's a beautiful thing. So I'm still working and not stopping until we get all 50 states on a pathway for record clearance, and that's including Florida. I
mean, I think that's amazing, though, that this happened to you and you found a purpose for what it is that you wanted to do out of this. And maybe, and I know it sucks because at the time it was awful and it prevented a lot of things, but at the same time, it brought a lot of blessings for other people. Yeah, and I, again, at that time when I was going through it, I didn't really realize at the time really what I was going through, but it was through the journey of meeting other directly impacted people who's also doing the work across the country, passing reforms, where there's like Jay Jordan, who worked really hard on getting this law passed in California. California passed it as well, Clean Slate. Daryl Atkinson, like there's so many people that's doing this work across the country, trying to help reforms, who are formerly incarcerated people who have a lived experience,
meeting these type of folks on this journey has really helped me really have ownership around this issue and my story and how I can help others.
And when it comes to, we have elections coming up, as we all know. And so because this is, something that you're well versed in. So where do some of our people who are going to be running for office stand on this? Like if we look at Joe Biden and we look at Donald Trump, we know that obviously Joe Biden has proclaimed April is Second Chance Month again. Where does Donald Trump stand on this issue? I just want to make sure, because sometimes you hear different things, but we want to know, as we're thinking about when it's time to vote, right? Where do our candidates stand on these issues?
Yeah, well, I would say for anyone to always research the candidates, right? Don't take my say, your say, anybody's say. Research your candidates for yourself or where they stand at. And that's why it's important for people to be engaged, listen to debates, listen to conversations, see what laws they have passed. Just as Joe Biden did a proclamation, to be honest, Donald Trump did a proclamation for a Second Chance Month as well. Obama did a proclamation for second chances as well. And so I think right now that just shows that this is bigger than politics, that it's people over politics, that people are realizing that this issue of criminal justice have touched so many people they can't ignore it. And so when it comes to this issue, we should make sure that no matter what candidate is up there, that we hold them accountable. Whoever you voted for the last time, make sure that they're still on the same side, of your issues, whether it's criminal justice, whether it's health care, whether it's reproductive rights, whether it's marriage equality, like wherever you at, the things that you care about, hold your electeds eligible. But, I would say when it comes to the two forefront candidates, I'm going to always ask them where they're at around people getting their record cleared.
Right.
On the federal level right now, it's hard for people to even get their record cleared. We have a bill called the Clean Slate Act that has been gaining bipartisan support, meaning Republicans and Democrats has been signing on. But the administration has a duty to make sure that people don't have to have high-paid attorneys or high pockets to get a pardon or know somebody in the White House. We got Second Chance Month coming up, Angela, and Desmond, you talk about Desmond, you know, both from Montserrat folks, you know.
Shout out to Montserrat, everybody listening.
Yeah.
By the way, people from Montserrat love when they get a shout out.
Yes.
It doesn't happen too often. So shout out to Montserrat. Desmond Meade is also got roots in Montserrat.
Yeah, my husband got roots in Montserrat. But Desmond Meade, who led Amendment 4, the work you just talked about, Time 100, Nobel Peace Prize, still does not have a second chance. He does not have a pardon. He done got all these accolades, you know. We went to the White House. We got invited to the White House. He got invited to the White House a few months ago, then got denied access to the White House.
Oh, that is true, because they vet you out before you come there.
So he got
invited.
invited.
They're going to invite you knowing why they're inviting you and what you stand for, and then tell you can't come in. That's
Listen,
crazy.
so then we got into the White House for Black History Month, and I felt like Jay-Z with the Beyonce around all these Grammys and awards. I went to the president and was like, listen, he got all these awards, but he didn't get the ultimate, what's up with his pardon? So what I'm trying to say is that there's not even easy route for folks who have shown that they have contributed their life commitment to even democracy to get a second chance. So that means that the system is broken. So what I'm saying is that whoever is in high office, we need to make sure that there are laws that give people a pathway to being able to get their record cleared, whether through a pardon, through a petition. So that's what we have the Clean Slate Act for.
All right. And how can people support if they're listening today and they're like, what can I do to make sure that I help elevate this message and make sure that we help get this across all 50 states?
Yes. So the first thing I would say is think about the time that you asked for a second chance. Just sit in that moment. Mm-hmm. Think about that moment that maybe you just, by the grace of God, did not get arrested where you could have. Or the time that you did and the case got dropped. Think about those moments. Think about your loved ones and family members. Talk about it at your dinner table. That's the first thing that, you know, we got to change the narrative about who's impacted. It's not the others. It's our families. It's our loved ones. It's our clergymen. It's our preachers. It's some of our politicians. Another thing I'll say, go to cleanslateinitiative.org. Follow us online. Go and see if one of your states have passed Clean Slate. We have 12 states. Maybe you're eligible. Maybe you have a Clean Slate. Michigan has passed Clean Slate. There's one of our states where on day one, when they passed it, over 1 million people records got cleared.
Wow.
And so you may be still living like you have a record when your record may be clear. So I would say go onto the website, talk to your local legislators, your state legislators, your members of Congress, make your voice be heard.
You know, I love when businesses and organizations also are supportive of people who are justice impacted and making sure that they're hiring people and providing housing for people who are just as impacted also. That is so important for people to be able to feel, I think, the confidence that they need to feel.
Yeah, J.P. Morgan has been a big supporter, J.P. Morgan Chase, on Second Chances. They just had a big event in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania was the first state to pass Clean Slate. We're actually having our conference there this June. And they have found that they even have a call center that is dedicated to hiring directly impacted people. And they said this has been their most successful workforce for ours, like turnover, work, their work ethic, and just how they showing up. And that, people do want to work. So when we have employers saying that people they can't find employees, we have over 70 to 100 million people that is ready to go to work. But maybe your practices is keeping them out. And so
something for business owners to take into consideration from you telling us those numbers right now.
Yeah. And if J.P. Morgan, the bank, who is federally regulated, can hire directly impacted people, I know y'all can too.
No excuses, y'all. Yeah. Okay? All right. And when is this going to happen for you? Like, when are you going to have your clean slate? What has to get done still for that to happen?
Yeah. So, one thing I just want to say, like every state, because we have states reach out to us all the time, politicians, people, activists, leaders, saying, how can we pass this in our state? The first thing is we also got to have the technical feasibility, because there is a technical piece to it to automate it. And we got some states that is still chiseling their files on some stone tablets back there.
Let me go pull up this file. Hold on, I'll be in the back.
No, literally, you got Miss Betsy going in the big old storage room trying to pull up a file, and that serves as a barrier. So we have to make sure states are updating their infrastructure, data infrastructure. But for me, again, I am committed to making sure that not just myself, there are over 2 million people in the state of Florida who just have a non-conviction on their record that they're trying to get cleared, and hoping that we could pass that. And I would say pass Clean Slate there so they could have relief. We had a expungement clinic there 2 years ago down in Miami, and they had hundreds of people in line that came trying to get their record cleared. Again, a non-conviction. And I would say it was this older Hispanic guy, and he was like, I'm not sure if he had Parkinson's or whatever, but he's shaking. He was like stumbling to get in with his wife. And we ran over to him to help him in. And I'm thinking he's coming to the community center, thinking he's coming for some real estate or some other type of help. Right. And he said, where do I go to get my record cleared?
Wow. And
that just hit me like, this man ain't coming. Like, most people are coming because they're trying to get access to a job, maybe housing. This man is later in his life, and his last looked like maybe that last stint of his life. He's coming here for the dignity to not die with a record defining him,
right?
Not to be defined by his record. And I think that's just all what people want to have, not dignity, humanity, to be seen for themselves and not their record. And so that's what we want. And so right now, even if my record don't get cleared in the next 2 or 3 years, if I don't do anything else, if I can help change the narrative around who and how and who we are as people and people who have records.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate all the work that you're doing. Of course, if there's anything I could do to help, I'm always on board for that, because it is something that I do believe in because of people close to me as well. So.
Yeah, I'm going to make sure we send you a shirt, because I don't have your size. So
what's my size?
What's your size? It's like petite and cute.
How you know I'm not a large?
I don't have it, so we can send you, because I believe in having the cute. But we got, like I said, we're not defined by a record, and just being able to amplify that and continue to talk about it. We got 12 states that pass it, but we got a lot of more work, a lot of work to do.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Sheena Meade, the Clean Slate Initiative. Make sure y'all follow her. Make sure you guys support. Amazing. Make sure you watch her TED Talk.
Yes, please watch my TED Talk. It's just 8 minutes.
Yes. All right. It's way up.